This video is brought to you by BenQ. Since the release of my monitor guide video episodes, I have been receiving a lot of questions from viewers about displays for creators. Today we will take a look at 4 high-resolution color-accurate monitors ranging in price from $500 to $1,600. I will go over the specs, main differences, shortcomings, and at the end I'll show you my personal picks from the 4. I will also make sure to link all of them plus some other great monitor choices in the description below. With that out of the way, let's check out the 4 contestants, what makes them special, and their respective prices. Starting with the recently updated ASUS ProArt display model number PA279CRV. This is a 27-inch 4K panel that offers a lot for its price, which is $500. This is by far the cheapest monitor on this list, but don't rush into conclusions as it has a lot to offer. Next up is the old but classic BenQ DesignView PD3220U. This 32-inch 4K monitor has been in the top charts, I believe, since 2019. We're talking about Thunderbolt 3, daisy chain capabilities, ports galore, and more. Going up in price, we have another favorite, the LG Ultrafine 32UL950-W. At 32 inches again and 4K resolution, it is yet another golden oldie from the end of 2018 that remains a recommendation of mine to this day. The final contestant is the controversial Apple Studio display. Starting at $1,600 without the extras, this 27-inch display is the only 5K monitor here. I'll leave it at that. Just like in contracts, I shall be referring to all 4 monitors hereafter as ASUS, BenQ, LG, and the Studio display. By the way, if you end up enjoying this video, subscribe because why not? So looking at all 4, here are some factors you should consider. All monitors have a 16:9 aspect ratio and all 4 are IPS running at 60 Hz. As they're all marketed as displays for creators, all are factory calibrated, offering various types of intimidating lingo, showcasing how accurate they are out of the box. I trust only one of them though. The LG and BenQ are both 32 inches, while the ASUS and the Studio display are 27 inches. Both of those sizes will serve you well. I have personally been advocating in favor of 32 inches, as it is a tad easier on the eyes when looking from a proper distance. But 27 inches will not be a bad choice either. In fact, if we talk about 4K resolution, all 3 except for the Studio display will give you a decently sharp picture, where the smaller 27-inch ASUS will stand out with a pixel per inch density of 163. The 32-inch choices have 137 ppi if you're interested, however, nothing can compete with the Studio display in terms of sharpness, since at 5K you will witness 217 ppi. With the Studio display you don't have to worry about scaling either, something that I'll talk about more in a moment. Okay, so let's start with the ASUS. In terms of panel technology, the monitor covers the most important metrics with flying colors. With 100% sRGB, 99% Adobe, and 95% DCI-P3, it is in fact the leader of the bunch if we talk about numbers only. Keep that in mind. There are 2 things that make this monitor special aside from the price, of course. First and foremost, it can output 96 watts of power, which is very surprising for this little guy. Second, it is a very bright monitor, providing 350 nits typical and 400 peak brightness. If you work in a bright office or studio, it does make a difference, believe me. Another thing I appreciate is the built-in power supply. Since the monitor is very light, you can easily mount it on an arm without worrying about any additional power bricks that you might have to hide somewhere. Now, the lightness brings me to the shortcomings. This monitor feels very plasticky and the least premium of all 4. Not that this is a problem, but it's worth considering. The stand feels very 2013, not 2023, and I don't like the chin, although I appreciate the easy on-screen button access. The biggest downside of this display, however, and it's totally justifiable, is the fact that it's not Thunderbolt. That means that all additional ports will do a great job if we talk about probably peripheral dongles and speakers maybe. You won't be able to plug in a drive and do much with it. Last but not least, there are no speakers, which I actually prefer, and I'll tell you why in a moment. Moving on to the versatility king, the BenQ. Equally impressive in terms of panel specs and specifically color accuracy, the BenQ shines with additional enhancements like the software tool called Display Pilot. Aside from fidgeting with all sorts of picture settings, you can assign different color profiles and presets based on the apps you use. And I'm not even talking about the hotkey puck that comes in the package. With it, you can change picture profiles, adjust the brightness, or control the volume if you have speakers plugged in, for example. The monitor offers 85 watts power delivery to the connected laptop and also has a built-in KVM switch, allowing the user to control two systems like a Mac and a PC from one keyboard and mouse set, something you usually buy separately, and it's awesome. Just as impressive is the size of this thing, which honestly is not something to brag about. It is so heavy that you have to go for a heavy-duty stand if you decide to prop it on a monitor arm. Also, being so massive, one might think that it sounds decent given all the internal dimensions, but in fact it sounds comically unimpressive. Finally, my biggest disappointment is the brightness. At 250 nits, typical brightness, my habits had me constantly smashing the brightness up button on the keyboard with the hopes that something would change. If we have the blinds open, I would honestly struggle a bit. Before we move on, let me show you the Infinity Max laptop stand by BenQ. It's a stand with a twist. At a glance, it's a height and tilt adjustable stand able to accommodate pretty much any portable computer under 16 inches. When necessary, it can completely collapse for storage or on-the-go purposes. Designed to fit any work style and desk setup, aside from looking extremely elegant, it impresses with the cleverly designed 360-degree rotating base. It's super responsive and smooth, giving the vibes of playing with the most giant fidget toy ever. The adjustable front widget secures the device no matter the angle, while the main plate ensures great heat dissipation. To add even more style and function to your workplace, you can bundle it up with BenQ's Grand Headphone Stand, which is made with the AirPods Max in mind. It's sturdy yet super gentle thanks to the silicone surface, which protects your headphones from scratches. As an extra perk, that stand can wirelessly charge your devices with 15 watts fast charging, which I definitely appreciate. Be sure to check out the first link in the description below to take advantage of BenQ's special offer on both stands. Next up is my old friend the LG. I've covered this display extensively and I still use it because it's great. It's a 5-year-old display at this point, yet LG still keeps it on their roster because it has everything you might require, including elegant and even front bezels. You can prop this display both horizontally and vertically and it will look amazing. It's the second brightest display after the Studio display, yet it offers the slowest charging capability at 60 watts. What I don't like about it is the external power brick actually, and the OEM stand, which takes too much desk space if you ask me, but as always, monitor arms. Feel free to check out my full review in the description below, but don't laugh at my newbie YouTube self from back then. The Apple Studio display impresses with unmatched build quality and aesthetics. Like its predecessor, actually this one, the Studio display will look good even after 10 years from now, yet you might still remember how much you paid for it. This is the fastest booting up display of them all, by the way, but even more impressive is the stunning picture quality. If you have any of the latest iPhone 13 or 14s, this is exactly what you can expect in terms of picture, yet in 27 inches. It is plenty bright at 600 nits and it provides 96 watts of power for the laptop. The built-in speakers are unmatched in the category of monitor speakers, as is the 5K picture. macOS is designed to work in 1440p scaled environment, also known as 5K native resolution. So in 5K you can expect plenty of real estate, crazy sharp PPI, and no GPU pressure by default. Not everything of course is sunshine and rainbows though. You can't mount it on an arm unless you pre-order it that way. The ergonomic stand will cost you an Apple Premium, and the monitor is the least versatile of all. Think of it this way: you have a Mac, you have a Studio display. That's it. You can't have a Studio display and have a PC or a Switch or any other console for that matter. You can just use this monitor with a Mac and maybe an iPad, but no multiple inputs. In terms of extra features, all 4 monitors have something to impress with. For starters, all the monitors with the exception of the Studio display offer daisy chaining, the ability to connect a display to the main one and plug in just a single cable to the computer. However, all 3 are very picky when it comes to that feature. Perhaps they work flawlessly if we daisy chain 2 of the same monitor models, but daisy chaining random brands like I did in my tests really depends on proper cables, multiple restarts, and a little rare. The ASUS, for example, was only able to mirror itself without being able to extend the secondary display. But this $500 monitor shines with the plethora of ports, including additional ports on the bottom left, where you have a USB-A plus USB-C, which offers 15 watts of power, great for plugging in and charging your phone, for example. The same extra ports are available on the BenQ monitor, yet on the side where one can find the headphone jack. Now, to be honest, this is not the best place for a headphone jack to exist, since even if you decide to plug in your headphones, it would still be too far. If we talk about external speakers, you cannot possibly achieve a clean setup with those cables coming from the side. The side ports should be more of a temporary ports if you ask me. Needless to say, BenQ also shines with the additional hotkey puck, which sits neatly towards the user, allowing instant adjustments. The LG monitor doesn't have any groundbreaking perks to brag about, aside from being the Gandalf in this group, but out of all, it is the most elegant looking with its thin profile and even bezels, especially on this ergo arm. The arm, by the way, is not part of this particular model, but just between us, I can't remember where I've placed the original stand, which I don't use because it takes too much desk space. Okay, so the Apple Studio display can flex with the 1080p built-in FaceTime camera and amazing microphone array. With the A13 chip, the monitor is capable of delivering a decent picture for meetings with very good sound quality. But where it really shines is the speakers. I have two pairs of studio monitors which I keep in my storage because the speakers on the monitor are amazing. Which leads me to speakers. Aside from the studio display, the LG monitor is the second in place when it comes to sound, yet it's far behind what Apple have created. It sounds like a monitor, nothing more. BenQ, on the other hand, sounds like a $5 radio. Tiny teensy sound that I honestly didn't expect from a display that has such a thick and sheer presence. Okay, so I'm going to compare the speakers of the Apple Studio display and the BenQ monitor. Let's start with the Apple Studio display first. Okay, so now let's switch to the BenQ and see the difference. Thank you. The ASUS has no speakers at all, and you know what? I'm totally fine with that. Like I mentioned in my Samsung M8 review, which I'll link below, I prefer no speakers and a headphone jack than having compromised speakers that I'm paying for and I will never use. It is time for the scientific shake test. What do you think? So which monitor would I pick? In complete transparency, and hear me out, I'm using the Apple Studio display and I will continue to use it because I think it delivers the best possible image out of all four. I did mention that on paper it is not the best, yet somehow it is the one that I can trust the best. Whatever I see on it looks 100% the same on all other devices. However, it is not the display I would recommend. It is very limiting when it comes to ports and leaves the user stuck with just a Mac in the form of a laptop, iPad, or desktop. You can't have the studio display and have a Mac and a PC, for example, or play games on your console. It's just built like that. I would 100% recommend the ASUS because it's honestly too good of a package. The fact that it's just as bright as the almost 3 times more expensive LG, offering just as versatile ports, can allow me to bench it. If all 4 monitors were equally priced or equally affordable, I would probably go for the BenQ because of the software and hardware versatility if I work in a relatively dark environment. If I have to pick just one, I wouldn't go for the Apple Studio display because of the application limitations. If you're not looking for a color-accurate monitor per se, feel free to check out my monitor guide video as well as my recent unique monitors episodes update to it. If you're thinking about a dual monitor setup, you can find some useful information in my guide here. Like and subscribe to the channel as well as my newsletter. And as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. This is Z, over and out.